Good morning, friends.
Good morning, sir.
Well, the introduction was I was looking at the watch, and I think we didn't want to leave anything in between. But then something which have been there is not there in the introduction, and I must tell you that because being frank, very indisciplined person. Indisciplined person in the sense that I started my education, my graduation was with honors. I got into econometrics. After graduation, I went to army, came back, got into econometrics, statistics, did economics, likely public finance. But afterwards, changed to teaching of computer programming. Being a business graduate, I was given the chance. Education, I was teaching computer programming there as well as in my institute. I never studied the last sentence she said, he was unanimously elected as the president of the Indian Society of Agricultural Economics. And that I said, I never studied in agricultural economics. I have not passed even a single paper in my lifetime in agricultural economics. But then, if you Google on my name, the known agricultural economics, the lesson is the walls of the classroom are porous. You need to look out of the classroom walls and learn as much as possible. Therefore, a person whom I ever most asked me, Mr. Subramaniam asked me that you speak to the students, you have spoken years back, now also again. So I said, okay. And he said, what is the topic that you want to speak? See, if I speak a mundane topic, you may not, the textbookish topic will not help. I speak bubbly the bouncer, certainly, sir, we will discuss about it. I chose a topic that is certainly out of box. I was box, therefore I said, indifferent. My mother is not alive, but if she were to confess, she would have said certainly yes. Friends, there is something which we need to learn, that knowledge is to be picked up. There is no teacher and student. We make a dichotomy between the teacher here and the student there. Unless the teacher enters into you, enters into you, then you learn. Otherwise, you stay. And unfortunately, the central row is completely packed, otherwise out of now, second thing, usually including the new education policy. In fact, that's what he said. I speak on, but it's a lot of people. I have very controversial opinion about the new education policy. It says 42 times pedagogy. Pedagogy is understood. I stress the word is understood as the technique of teaching. Technique of teaching. Pedagogy, the word comes from pedagogue. That is, pedagogue is small children. I think there is this. I call this acidity. the PPT, you call it as PPT. I had named it as CDT. CDT is the crowd deceiving technique. Why do I use it? If I go on talking like this, I can what I have said there. But then if I speak what I have said there, after a few minutes, there will be, you will get into and then you will start your brain absent, eyes open. And that is what we start from the childhood. That in the past, eyes open, ear closed. They call it as crowd deceiving. There's one laptop there. It is deceiving this crowd this side. Instead of looking where they are looking. Anyway, pedagogy is teaching small children. Making small children. It comes from the Greek word pedagogy. Making them leaders. Small children. You are not small. You are a grown up. Sir, what is the teaching for grown up? And I feel ashamed that the top class of education of this country, all the top class education of this country, did not know that there are teaching methodologies for the higher ups, for your group. The teaching methodology is called andragogy, not pedagogy. Andragogy. Andragogy is where absorption and delivery meet each other. Absorption and delivery each other. Beyond that, when you go to your PhD, MPhil, etc., it's called orthogogy. Both words are not there in the new education policy, even though it insists on orthogogy, that's learning by self. Have you ever heard a carpenter giving a lecture to his son or daughter on the blackboard that you cut this, hold the saw, this is the design of the saw, you have to cut this way? Have you heard any time? But the carpenter's son becomes an expert carpenter. A sculptor's son becomes an expert sculptor. A mason's son becomes an expert mason. How do they become? That is orthogogy. Orthogogy is when the learner and the giver, the delivery, the two things meet in between. We have to go to the higher level of learning and teaching. I follow that. And I'm giving you a totally fresh thing. Maybe picking up from the literature some things, not everything. Next. Okay. I put it, right? Yeah, we have a remote in our house which only listens to my voice. Because all of us, it has looked at us, and everyone listens to that lady, so I have to listen to her. So, the remote, exactly this way we have to do in front of the TV. Then it comes. First of all, let me make it clear what is economics. Economics is finally, you are given such resources, you are given business students, and you have to organize a play group. Some games event, then you choose, and accordingly to allocate the students. The stronger one sitting there is kabaddi. The lean one put here. This fellow is put in chess. The other fellow is put in volleyball. Tall fellow. They are put in kho. This girl, she runs very fast. She is put in triple chess. All that is that we do. We allocate the resources according to. We allocate the resources according to the productivity, to the skills that are there inside. Greater, the wider economics is allocating resources to meet the ends. Allocating the available resources to serve in the volleyball team, all are 5 inch. Oh, can we borrow from Bangalore University? There are all people there. We can't do it. Within this, we have to do it. Within here itself, two people who are capable to play volleyball, and that's it. Ambedkar school children, when they used to imitate me, there was one very interesting thing they used to imitate. Deshpande sir comes to class. It's peanuts. Economics is peanuts. Economics is just understanding your day to day. Those of boys and girls in the house, they know how much water to put in cooking rice. My father taught me this much water. That is 1.5 times the height of the rice in that pot. How he into it? And my mother did not teach me cooking. It was difficult to learn from her. Muddy. Yeah, I'm not supposed to teach her. But my father taught me when my mother went to. Now, learning is that process. Exactly, economics runs into every aspect that we do. And therefore, there are 3 ways. That is, there are chronological, issues, and the branding experience. These are the 3 important components of economics. The chronological, in the sense that it has developed from ancient economic thought. In ancient India or the ancient civilizations, economics was present, but its wider use was more important than the economics in itself. Wider use in the sense the use for a society. Therefore, the treatise, that is Chanakya's Shastra, Kautilya's Arthashastra. Arthashastra is a treatise on statecraft. So also Akbari. So also there are a number of texts, every religion, every language, including Bible. The texts tell us how do we behave, how do we allocate our time, our resources, our intellect. So ancient economic thought was holistic to all. Then came mercantilism. Like we market certain things and take. They exchange thing came in. Then the bureaucrats, then the classical political economy. And the classical political economy was one of the turning points in economics where all the society was taken into consideration. Then there are other schools like school, historical school, now that comes in the branding experience. So Ricardian school, French school, etc. are issue based, ideology based. Marx came in between. During our times, we used to discuss Marx in the corridor. There's not much difference. But today also, you people discuss Marx in the corridor. Only the spelling is different. Those days, we used to discuss MARX. Today, we discuss MARKS. The difference is that this is the walk of economics through. What is Ricardian? What is Chicago School? What is up to here? Up to institutional. Up to it was including Keynesian. All that wasn't the exchange value was based on the market. What do I give you and what do you take from me? You need to focus here, not to the floor. So, from the institutional school, the things started differing. That other than this girl is asking, sir, I was the one who gave you, but the flower bouquet you gave to her. That is exactly institutional. That is exactly institutional. There is an exchange between us that you give me something, I give you something. This is exchange. This is institutional. She had not given me anything, but she had given me pleasure of listening, which is not counted. And therefore was given. That is something which came in institutional economics and development beyond that. That is no Ricardian, new institutional behavior school. I will give you very simply. Initially, it was all together, holistic knowledge. The knowledge was together everything. Then came the differences, that is by issue based. The distribution came in. Distribution came in that some people becoming rich, others being poor, and the poor are made to work, and the surplus value is taken by the rich, Marxian school came. Ricardian school was only market will decide who gets and who doesn't get. Keynesian school was the state and the market, two hands will decide about it. And then came institutions. Unfortunately, it did not originate in India. Even though we are the institutional culture, Why? Professor Subramanian invited me. Whatever in the introduction, etc., whatever has said are words, fine. And there are far better people than me in Bangalore itself. But then why me? Institutional bondage. We know each other for certain things. And this girl, if she meets me sometime in Majestic or sometime on NGO or anywhere, I don't do it NGO, but somewhere, she will wish me, sir, good morning. Yeah, I don't remember. Sir, remember you had come to Singapore and you gave me the bouquet? That's institutional. Why don't we look at the father? That's institutional. Family is an institution. Society is an institution. School is an institution. Classroom is an institution. Friendship is an institution. And these institutions, Gurukul is an institution. These institutions developed in India from the old age, from the age-old fact. And therefore, institutional economics should have developed in India. Unfortunately, we hittal gada madilla. Ghar ki murgi dal barabar. So all along we never thought of institutional economics. We never thought institution is an important thing. But we followed the Western economic thought and came up to institution. Now the real question comes up. Institutions are important determinants of. Okay. Now what is economics? Economics teaches you quite a few things. But then while teaching, we are focused only on the branding, the modeling, the branding, focused knowledge. Efficiency of use of resources. How the resources should be used, how efficiently. Clarity that everything should be as clear as possible, that there is no way we miss the thing. Observation, the society should be observed and what do they do about it. Normative concepts, there are certain norms of behavior. There are certain norms which are there. And certain times the norms have to be challenged, but not necessarily always overjump. Like our presentation of budget. For long, many years, it used to be in the evening. It used to be in the evening till 1999. I'm not wrong. It was in the evening. Why? Because Britishers wanted to listen to it. Why Britishers wanted to listen to it? After 47, they said that you present your budget in the evening so that we want to know about it. First 3 budgets we had to return the loan that Britishers had made on India. And what was the loan? It included, among other things, the railways that they have done. So they borrowed from the crown and they made railways here. It has to be returned back to the crown. Fine. 1857 war. They fought with the mutineers or the Indian soldiers. So who fought the war? Soldiers were also Indians. But they spent for the war. So they took back that money. That money also we have to return it back. And thus, the budget used to be presented at court. The British want to listen to it. It was that. Not only that, the budget has to be carried in the briefcase. Till Nirmala Sitaraman came, everyone used to carry it in the briefcase. And mind you, the briefcase was never black. It was always red briefcase. Because Britishers carried red briefcase, not black briefcase. This is norm. This is normative. Then there are objectivity and organization. There is objectivity in everything. One must think very rationally. And objectivity is central of Buddhism. Many people forget Buddhism as a religion gives you first thing. Is that objective? Do I understand it? Then I accept it. Do I understand it? Then I take that, we go ahead. Then there is methodical, stepwise structural methodology. And then there is intelligent connectivity. Economics, for that matter, law also. When you argue in the court, you argue logically. The person had not come here, he must have come from his house to here. So what are the steps? Was there any evidence of the CCTV cameras that you are walking towards here from his house? Was there any evidence that he left his house at 7:30 and reached here at 7:45? How much is this? This is all logic. And this logic is get into learning habit, and learning is economics. And then the creativity. What I am using today, that economy and economics, I am distinguishing between. So economics is finally the structured thing. Now, this University of Heidelberg, he had looked into one fellow by name Michael Faber. He looked into Chanakya's entire Arthashastra. And what did he emphasize on? He emphasized on Chanakya's 7 concepts, in which Kosha is only one, that is treasure. 7 concepts in which treasury is one, and therefore it is not economics. It is the statecraft, the art of statecraft, which means how do I run the state? It comes into administration or public administration. But then we call it as Arthashastra, Kautilya's Arthashastra. Why do we call it as Kautilya's Arthashastra? Because it is the Kautilya's way of looking at the art of running a state. Right. Now in economics, we are familiar with this terms of production, consumption of goods, services, etc. Then micro, the minimal level economics, and macro. And you are never told by the economics teacher that micro and macro never meet. They never meet. The micro has to be an observation and macro has to be a generalization. Why? Then micro and macro should be taught separately. In micro, you have minute observations. In macro, you make aggregate generalization. And when you do aggregate generalization, when I say here that there are, most of them are boys. That girls. No, sir. I counted. There are not all, most of them are not boys. Most of them are girls. Some girls are sitting inside the boys. So you have not observed them. They are also very mature. Yes. That's the problem comes with macro. And why do macro fails? Macro fails because of this. What is the problem? It's starting one of the topics of econometrics, the error of aggregation. Why are we not able to control inflation despite we follow repo rate increase, repo rate decrease, repo rate decrease, and every time the monetary policy meets, they are very tall people, very acclaimed people. One of my friends is the chair, governor is the chair. One of my friends is very active member, Shashank Pide, is very active member. There are 2 of them, very active member. Why are they not able to control inflation for years together? When inflation was in double digit also, Manmohan Singh being the prime minister was not able to control it. The reason is not that the tools are ineffective. The reason is that there is a large aggregation bias. The reason is that we have not understood economy. Why we have not understood economy? How many of us, suppose all of us are investors, we have billions in our pockets. How many of us invest because the repo rate has changed? We don't look at the bank rate. We look at the market rate of returns, not the bank rate of returns. How many of us deal only with digital transactions? Not many. Quite a few transactions are in cash. And therefore, recorded transactions are not 90% of our transactions. Therefore, The control of the economy of economics is limited. Then we come to the technical economics. This is something which is the killer tablet, which I learned and I taught for many years. And then I understood that this is killer tablet rather than I give a tablet which makes life easier. Therefore, I should. What is the killer tablet? Killer tablet is econometrics, statistics, the kind of modeling. I'll come to that sometime. These are something which really make things rather than a paper by one Mehta, very internationally famous person, in published in Economic and Political Trade, he said that international trade has gone down by is 13. Listen carefully. 13.2378 rupees per unit. 13 I can understand. 0.2378 rupees, if anybody can get me. 0.2378 part of the rupee. We don't have paisa even now. Forget about 23 paisa I can get. But 7/8 part of 1 paisa. That is where economics has came. That's where economics differs from economics. Then we go to modeling. Modeling is very attractive, isn't it? Being model is very attractive. Therefore, attracted a lot of people are constructing the models. Some of these models have been constructed really bad shape, and economics teachers don't teach the flaws of the model. But then you are mesmerized by the data gamma written on the board. For example, Lewis, Rosso, the Harandover, Swank. I take one of them. I take any of the steady state growth models. The growth model is based on growth of the GDP. GDP is calculated as the total value of production of goods and services in the economy. Do we have the data of production of value of goods and services? Forget about goods, but services. I am giving a lecture here. Is it recorded in the CSO Delhi? No. Is it counted in the CSO? No. There is a lot of it. Is not counted. Morning the milkman comes or the milk van comes, because the urban people do not know milkman, isn't it? In my class it doesn't say. Look out. The milkman is not known to many of us. If you have to do that, I give you a hint during my colleges. You should sit in the back bench. So the teacher doesn't know. So that's okay. I told you, I was very indisciplined. So only an indisciplined person can quickly wake up. Other simple persons, professors, anyway, what happens is the link breaks. The milk van comes and it is broken. Entire milk spills. Does it get recorded in the national production? No. Okay. How many poultry in the village which is unorganized? They have 2 or 3 hens or cocks in the house. Are they recorded in this case? No. Is there any method of doing so? No. So what is that we get in the GDP? We get an estimate of the gross domestic product. What is estimate? Your estimate age is 55 years. Accept it. I have estimated it based on his other things, his capacities, behavior, etc. I thought that he must be 55. But then he accepted it. So estimate, accept the estimate. There is a difference between estimate and the real observation. And that's called error, and this error played havoc in econometrics. Anyway, so the Solomon model or steady state growth model is that you have to obtain the growth rate in such a way that growth takes place with the available resources and the available rate of change. It's not simple. It's not feasible. So I have it. It's all academics. So also Lewis, first one. Arthur Lewis got Nobel Prize on it. That if people are more in the rural areas, they should go to urban areas to work. If they get more money, they do go. But then they don't get into a particular thing. They get into the menial jobs. Is that the goal of an economy? That the rural farmer should get into a menial job in the urban areas? No. And what happens when the pandemic comes? They return back because they have no certainty. Therefore, some of these fall down. Then there are traditional. Roscoe's theory, the traditional precondition, takeoff, maturity, consumption level. This is, if you sit together, you can find out. So, what is great in it? The reason why this is taught, is we are from the childhood forced not to think. Not to think. My daughter went to school, came back with a letter from the teacher saying that she refuses to say beyond 10. I asked her. She said, when 20, 21, 22, 30, 31, 32, 40, 41, why not 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3? The question is very simple. And why? By heart these spellings for lifelong, 19, 18, 17, do they get anywhere? Except those numbers. So why do we do it? Why do we do non-mechanical and afterwards mechanical? Why this intermixing? We don't challenge. And that is where knowledge is slightly beyond what we learned. Economics is knowledge. Further, we have learned in economics quite a few things. I will not spend too much of time because I know very well that this CDT can also be used in order to kill time. CDTs are also used in order to kill time. In the sense, this alone I can make 45 minutes. I don't want to. Because I'm not here to kill 45 minutes, but give you something which is important out of this. Now we have inflation, economy is a bathtub, GDP, international trade. What are the things which happen in economics? Why so many price increases? CPI, WPI, etc. Nobody challenges. In fact, during mid-90s, I said that inflation is the one which is faced by the consumer. Therefore, consumer prices, what you buy in the market, are the ones on which the inflation should be calculated. We have consumer price index. How is it calculated? It's again a very great aggregation and large aggregation. It depends on the use, which use you have. Therefore, WPI was higher and CPI was lower. Why? Someone did not explain it. Non-economists explained it. There is a gap between WPI wholesale price index, CPI is consumer price index, not Communist Party of India. Consumer price index. I know while introducing me, NCAP was, she went into Google what is NCAP, and then she made to give me that lecture in infrastructure. It was already in the infrastructure. NCAP is agricultural institution. Anyway, the CPI is a consumer price index. Now the difference between the two, because wholesale market is different, consumer market is different. The lag between wholesaler buys it and sells it to consumer, there is a lag of time in between. That is why the inflation is different. We come to economy and the market. There is a circular flow of income in the. But is it really? That's what economists assume. Is it really? If it was a circular flow of income, then a few would not have become billionaires. A few would not have become. Then taxes. I will not go through because each one of them I can explain as much as GDP. I told you that is finally the estimate given by a few clerks with a lot of assumptions. how many hens will be there in the Indian villages? Approximately, sir, in village population, suppose it is say 10,000, we can say that there is 200 households. Out of 200, only 10% will hold hens or poultry. 10%, which means 20. So 20 multiplied by the number of villages, 575. That much, sir. Number is written. Who challenges it? You know the story of Birbal and the crows. Akbar's wife's brother, these are dangerous fellows. Wife's brother. They make that husband's life miserable. So, wife's brother told Akbar, you call this Birbal as the most intelligent, ask him to calculate the number of crows, tell the number of crows in Delhi. So Akbar said, this is a good idea. Why Akbar? Get it done. Okay. Birbal, इधर आओ. बेगम साहब ने पूछा है, दिल्ली में how many crows are there in Delhi? Birbal already knew that बेगम साहब ने पूछा है, मतलब wow, from where it has. So he said, difficult. I will take 1 month's time. Okay, given. I will take about 5,000 gold homes. Okay, I will require 5,000 soldiers to go around. Okay, given. I will require a house where nobody should disturb me. Okay, all my family will stay in that house and that house will be mine. Okay. After 1 month, Akbar sends the soldiers outside, move and count as much you can. Come back and write it somewhere. Anyway, after 1 month, Birbal goes to Akbar's Daba. Have you done it? Yes. How many are there? 3,47,283. He gives it to that brother-in-law. He gets up. How? I'm the board. Count and tell me. If it is less, count and tell me. But what is the reason? More means some people would have come from outside. Less means some people would have come from here to there. Got it? So, Birbal ki company is that. Anyway, I gave you that GDP is an estimate. Then in the international trade, again, in the international trade, we believe that the trade takes place from the state to state. No, it takes place from the trader to trader, not state to state. And this trader to trader is recorded at the ports. At the ports. Now, trade takes place from Karnataka, it goes via road to Maharashtra. From Bombay, it is traded. It is recorded in Bombay. Some goes through Bangalore out of the country. It is recorded at Bangalore, so Karnataka. Now, do we have a port in Jharkhand? No. Jharkhand thing is lifted by air to Mumbai and from Mumbai it goes. And Jharkhand, if it is recorded that it is in the Jharkhand. Now, this data international trade also has. We go further, and I will not spend more time in economics. Because I lose the important thing there. In marketing, we believe that markets should behave like what is being stated in the economic system. They never behave like that. How many of you purchase a phone? How many of you purchase a phone by inquiring into 20 shops? None. Because he has purchased that phone and he says, this is very good. You purchase it. He is not marketing. He is not marketing Apple. He is not marketing Oppo. But then since he has Oppo, I want to have Oppo. The markets do not behave as they are written in the textbook of economics, but ages together we teach the market conditions, we teach monopoly, oligopoly, perfect competition, and all that. The airline, there are examples which, if I give you the class on economics, I will give you. Okay. Same thing for those who are in economics. So, coming to the brass tacks, what you need to learn, I'm keeping the, and I have watched also there. Watch in the sense your faces tell me. I know the timing. Timing is written on the faces. And therefore, a good teacher learns a lot from the students. Now, economics is based on assumptions, theorizing, measurement, testing, and but then from assumption, theorizing, measurement, verification, and testing, from the errors they stop. From the errors they stop. How many times you hear that any finance minister has corrected the finance bill substantially during the year that is going on? No, they don't. Even though it is understood by their economic intelligence wing that such a scheme is not working properly, even then they do not correct, they do not stop it, because the from error to reorientation, there is an absence of that particular thing. From here to here, there is absence. And from reorienting to assumptions, again, assumptions which fail have to be corrected. Assumptions which fail is percolation, theory of percolation. That if we take growth, distribution takes place. It's an assumption which doesn't happen. Now, why does this happen? Why people end up only here? For example, I give practice. There was the finance ministry, and he thought that people withdraw. That time 10,000 was big amount. He thought people withdraw from the bank and they spend more. So if we put a tax on 10,000 and above withdraw, say 5%, then people will withdraw less. They'll keep the money in the bank. I don't know who told. And it was put in one of the budgets. After it was put in one of the budgets, one smart professor like me, he went to the bank, withdrew 9,900 rupees and put 100 rupees in it and managed it. Again, he went and withdrew 9,900 and put it in. Again, third day, he went and withdrew and late they understood. Now, these are all reasons. And there are many quixotic issues in the economy because economics is not understood and this part is not understood. Really. Why it is not understood? It is not understood because our learning methodology is wrong. And what is the wrong in the learning method? Consider these are not horses. They are students. It's called paddock or corral. Paddock or corral is that enclosure which I showed there. And in this enclosure, you are taught everything. This is your syllabus. You are left inside. You know very well that you can read out of the syllabus, but you don't read because there is a imaginary binding around the boss. The board of studies is one which will construct this, and then there will be too much theoretical and repetitive economics. There will be micro compartmentalization. There will be lack of preparing the student for problem solving. I ask the basic questions sometimes. How many of you are graduates? Raise your hands. No, okay. Now, this question you asked to the graduates. What is this bachelor means? You are getting the degree of bachelor. What does that mean? Does that mean that you take of remaining unmarried? But then can the girls say that we are bachelor? They have to say no, we are unmarried. It is not applicable. Where did it come from? It came like this only, that somebody told that it is Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor. I'll give you the origin with art. Then there is a lack of preparation for problem solving. No understanding of budget. In Ambedkar School of Economics, we started a laboratory of economics. You have mute court. Why mute court is necessary? Because that gives you practice. That gives you practice of arguments. That gives you practice of how to read the law. That gives you practice of what you have learned. In economics, there is no practice. And therefore, I have put a laboratory of economics. There is a gap between what is taught and what is required for the economy. And there is a gap between what is needed and what is delivered. All this leads to economy misfunctioning or malfunctioning. Otherwise, in 70 years, we should have got something which is far bigger than what we have today. What we have missed, the concepts that determine the information flow, the authority we missed in economics, ownership of understanding of intermediaries, that is those who operate in the market. You want to buy a land or a flat. Unless you have an intermediary, you can't buy it because you don't know where the market exists. Asymmetry of information, that one person goes to buy it, he gets it for 1.5 crores, another person goes, he says 1.85 crores. A chief minister's driver goes to the canteen, he gets the best service. But then the other fellow who was this driver, but the option, he doesn't get that service. The reason is that that market is different, which is not taught in. It is not taught in classroom. Exchange and medium of exchange. Medium of exchange is not money alone. Medium of exchange, I know why you people are sitting so nicely and tightly. The medium of exchange, for me, to make you sit, if I come alone and start talking, that those fellows will not. You are sitting here. You are sitting here. And that is my medium of exchange, my medium of control. We don't understand the medium of exchange. We understand economics. Medium of exchange is money. Economics is beyond that, which is not taught. Social policy is medium of exchange. The social hierarchy is medium of exchange. The power hierarchy is a medium of exchange. All that is not taught in economics, but that is in economics. In pursuit of economic fundamentalism and over mathematical treatment of real life issues, we have lost the important component of economics. And that is something what economics missed over time. It developed in this manner. It initially was understanding, then expansion and making the compartments of agriculture economics, industrial economics, econometric, welfare economics, this, that, and then went into westernization, large westernization, got into the data and measurement. Certainly, data and measurement is something which should be empirically there. We should tell. But then, some time back, a friend of mine made a statement that those who get married die by the time they reach 100 years. Most of them die by the time they reach 100 years. Certainly. I can assure I will go beyond 100. Now, I wrote on him, and his remark, that everyone who takes birth dies, and this is empirically proved. He said this is empirically proved. This is also empirically proved, which means that we get into the data so much by understanding the data in given form. I asked one question, and you ask it to yourself. What is my age? You will say 32. Not mine. You ask yourself. Don't estimate my age. She says 32. I'm not 32. Right? You're more or less near. You tell your age. You say 21 years, 20 years, 19 years, 18 years. You will tell something. 18 years? Is it? How, sir? How many months? Okay, 7 months. 18 years, 7 months. I see. How many days? Okay, sir, 20 days, sir. Okay. How many hours? How many minutes? How many seconds? Sir, a little bit pretty. The reason why data are not to believe, there's a book by Prof. Capra. He was a professor of theoretical physics in California University. He talked about empiricism and the data in physics, not in economics. When physics data can be challenged, Economics data पर मुझे नहीं. It's just made by people that there was the complete. That's why that IMF says India will grow at 7.9%. World Bank says no 7.2%. CSO says 8.2%. The same data, all of you are working. The answer should be same. The answer is not same. That is economy and not economics. Okay. We come to next came the development of multidiscipline. A very wrong concept again followed in the new education policy. Every institution is multidisciplinary. There are very few institutions which are interdisciplinary. There are very few institutions which are bidisciplinary, and most of the institutions are multidisciplinary because large number of disciplines exist in the same institution. But then what is not there is interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary is working across discipline within. That is, I was one of the students working on water users association. Why groups come together? We use what is called PAT test in psychology, picture appreciation test. I write a picture of a professor here and then ask you to appreciate. He says that professor is giving boring lecture. Okay, because it is there in his mind. Mind comes out. That professor is an old man. Mind comes out, and that's called picture appreciation test. This is done in army. Now, that was used. Okay. Then we have social relevance policy and commodification. Everything became smart. Now we come to the other aspect of it, that's economy. Economy uses macroeconomics, growth scenario, industry-wise understanding, and it's all together. That is how we understand economy as such, in which manufacturing is there, agriculture is there, services sectors are there, banking sector is there, international trade is there, insurance, transport, all this. Listen, now it is beyond economics. In each economics is there, but then it is holistically understanding the entire thing. Students, I understand you holistically. Then fiscal situation, deficits, revenue, etc. Trade sector, trade deficit, the balance of trade, all that comes in the economy. Demand and supply, finally, monetary sector, controlling inflation, controlling money supply, trying to do away with the demonetization effects and all that. But then, how do we see it at one place? At one place, we see it like this. Economy is on this axis. There is a textbook knowledge of the concepts, the diagrams, formulae, the theories, the foreign theories, and Indian application. All these are on one axis. On this one is the society. Society differentiated according to income groups, according to sector, industrialists, agriculturists, income group, rich, semi-rich, poor, industrialists, large industrialists, middle, minor industries, then services sector, the LIC, banking, other transport services, then you get into the large differentiation on this. Now this whole matrix is something which defines economy. Therefore, thinking about economy needs holistic thinking and not myopic thinking that we do in economy. But in economy, we have this position, and this is the macro position, what is called economy. This macro position. What is there? First comes polity. We are Indian accepted democratic society. The state is democratic. So we accepted it. We accepted at the beginning, we accepted a mixed economy. Neither the market friendly nor the socialistic party. A mixed party. We got into centralized planning. So entire thing is decided by the state. State becomes the major player. And state is represented by three components. That is quality, executive, bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is executive, and the people or lobbyists. These three components, they represent the state, from quality to state. State to producers of various commodities, markets, the exchange values. Then come institutions which involve, and what is an institution? An organization which depends on certain norms. Family is an institution. When father comes or mother eats after the father. Any problem? I told you I am teacher. So anything this side, why are you tapping him? Be quiet, because I get off that. And if that happens in the front, I am not bothered there, because that side somewhere I was sitting. Okay. One should choose a proper place for proper mischiefs. That's economics. That's economics. That your resources should be allocated in the best possible manner. A thief is branded by law a thief only if is caught and proved. Till then is accused. Till then is only accused. It's not a thief. So remember, if you want to be accused, don't be here. There you do whatever. And that is the safest place. I promise. I know it. Anyway. Then consumers, that is the public, and finally there are external influences. This is the aggregate economy, not economics. Economics enters everywhere. In here economics enters, here it enters, here it enters, here it enters, here it enters. It enters everywhere. So also politics. So also political science. So also sociology. So also behavioral science. So also science itself. That's chemistry, physics, mechanical engineering, structural engineering, everything. So every knowledge branch enters into each of these components in order to make the economy as a whole. Then we come to the component. First thing, economy is formed by ideology. What ideology? Like I told you in the beginning. In the beginning, we started with the open market, but then we thought Britishers have left, so we will be closer to socialist kind of economy. It was the marriage between China and Russia. Between the two we chose. So left, right, and center. What ideology is followed by the state is important in order to understand the economy. We took a U-turn during 91 in the ideological platform, but we continue to have in our constitution socialistic. We are not socialistic anymore, but it is there in the constitution. We have wider, and that covers all the social sciences. Economy covers all the social sciences. Allocation of resources according to various components. Society, the Dalit scholarship. Society, the scholarship for various groups. Houses for the poor, ration for the poor. This is something which comes in covering all the social sciences. Then allocation of resources, not by economic principles. That we don't ask them to work. Recently, the central government has taken a decision of extending the scheme of giving ration to the poor. But then it has not said that you have to give something to the state. No, you have to work on the road. No, it's free. Then there are theories of distribution and poverty. Here we have one problem which is stagnant, that is poverty. And there are theories which help us to come over poverty. They are good, they are bad. Will not get into it. If you ask questions, I will. Then there are policy tools. There are policy tools. Policy tools are of two types. One is your father very carefully thinks that you should get into law. For instance, no pay. And he has calculated everything. or your mother has calculated everything and said that you should get into law. That is policy of your career planning. Yellow circle arts ಮಾಡಿ. Go to BA or go to ITI. That is the injury and treatment. Largely, our policies are firefighting. There is an injury, so there is a treatment. And long-term policies from the beginning of the country, 1947 onwards, till now, if you look into the policy map, it is like this. We go this way, then come down, then we go this way, then come down, then we go this way, then come down. We are not consistent in our policies. That's the reason why certain problems which infested India then are even now. The other day I was on a committee where we were looking into the backward districts of the country. Second, I had made a list of backward districts of the country, and it was in the context of Niti Aayog. 12th plan also prepared the list of backward districts of the country. There is a surprising thing that the second plan list and the 12th plan list is more or less the same, except one or two districts get added. What does that mean? That all these years, our districts which were backward then have continued to be the same. Then the policy has not effectively treated a particular. Then we come to the institutions, economic, political, and social. These are the ones which make or break the speed of the economy. And last one is markets. Markets are the one which we believe since 91. We had the LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. All these three things, I will make them in one. All these three things are market friendliness. Internal market, external market, labor market, land market, agriculture market, industrial market, everything. And taking out the curbs or taking out the controls on decontrolling it. Thinking that this invisible hand will behave, but markets do not do that. Markets always are discriminatory. I go with him in on the MG road and I want to buy him something. I'm sure that it will be costlier because I am in negotiation. But he goes with him, they will get it cheaper than I get. The reason is that our markets are not free markets, our markets are not perfect competitive markets. Our markets are institutional markets, and there is no theory of institutional markets in economics. There is no theory of institutional markets. Market is an institution, but markets also behave institutional. I give you an example of chief minister's driver and a chief secretary's driver or Tahsildar driver. If chief minister's driver goes to the market and with the car, he is a driver. Tahsildar's driver is a driver. Same pay scale, same salary, same colony they live. But the treatment that the first one gets is different than the treatment that the second one gets. This is called institutional market, and that runs our economy. Last, I give you a simple group one. Economy behaves in this manner. What is group one? Generalization, replicability, objectivity, universality of applications, and predictability. This is what economy should. Then it should have open access, it should have neutrality, and finally it should have empirical evidence to prove the three, that is the open access, neutrality, and the application of policy. Economy and economics differ in one very important thing, that economics is a subject discipline. Why do you call it a discipline? Why a subject discipline? Because there is a philosophy of thinking in every subject. Law as a subject, yes, but as a discipline. When I ask law is a discipline, I would say that law has logic as its philosophy. Anything goes logical. One thing connected with another, another thing connected with the. So engineering and law, mechanical engineering or electrical, they are exactly the similar philosophy. Logic is also economic philosophy. Therefore, philosophy of learning, philosophy and learning is the discipline, and that is the discipline. Now, economics is one discipline. It has its formal rules, regulations, models. But then, in the economy, largely the society comes, human beings come, institutions come in, polity comes in, state bureaucracy comes in, law, legal aspect come in, and therefore economy is a wider concept which may take a few principles from economics, but then it is totally differently applied. With these words, I thank you. I proceeded and
thank you, sir, for your words. We now go on to the question and answer session. A mic will be circulated. The participants can ask any of their queries.
Hi, sir. Great speech, by the way. So my question is that you told that we don't understand the economy, right? By the examples you cited, like about the repo rate and all that. So I interpreted it as that you told like we haven't understood the economy, how it should be understood. And how do you suggest that we put this across to the politicians? Like,
we'll put it across
to the politicians.
Good. It's she thought that it's a question. Anyway, I think it's an expression. Good. We cannot bring it to the brains of the politician. It's not our business. They have to have their own brains. If that is not there, then we elect them. We elect them and we put them there. They have to think about it. Now, understanding economy is not an easy job. And I cannot say that anybody understands it. One has to have the component to be understood. The components to be understood. In fact, the best of the economists, they are supposed to be in UK and US. Even then, the recession of 2008, they could not stop it. For the reason that they could not predict it, they could not see anything happening. The happening was such simple. I can tell you now, but it was such simple that we would have had it. But the reason also the insulation was there. They gave lot of loans, mortgages, and it did not come back. The banking industry collapsed, and along with that, Lehman Brothers. The problem was so severe that the entire world was taken by that. India could survive. The reason is India has two very important cushions. Even though we call them as our problems, but there are cushions. One cushion is that 80% of our economy is unorganized, unrecorded, unorganized, and does not participate directly into a organized market functions. Therefore, they are out. Recession impacts the economy, which is very well organized. Therefore, UK, Germany, US had its worst impact. Second, our economy, whatever it is not so much digitized that everything is recorded. Even today, we pay to the auto fellow in cash, we pay to the vegetable in cash. Our cash transactions have reduced significantly, but not gone out totally. If it reduces significantly and if it goes out to maximum, then we get the shock, and this shock absorber saved us. Third, our labor market also is so unorganized that all our maid servants are not recorded anywhere. Payments to them are not recorded anywhere. And therefore, these work as insulation. The unorganized sector works as insulation for the recession. Therefore, India will not face the next recession, which is being predicted next year. India will not face. Because we are insulated. We are insulated, our markets are fragmented. Understanding economy is not an easy job. So I did not take your expression as a question. I took it as an expression. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It was a very informative lecture, sir. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, like, as students of law, how do we analyze the economic effects of law? When we are looking at statutory law, how do we analyze the economic effects of that? Yes.
Are you a teacher? Yes,
Yes, sir.
so you're half intelligent as much as I am. Understood? This is full intelligence. This is half. This much beard you have, I have good beard. It's a wonderful question. That's a question which any of us should get as law students. What is the impact of a particular law on the economy? So it will go by. Please listen. This is for you. If a particular law is passed, for example, land law, because it will go by law. Which law? Land law, land reforms, Act of Tenancy. Tomorrow, we feel that all the markets have free access. Tenancy market doesn't have. Across India, we have different tenancy acts in different states. This should be brought together. But Professor Ambedkar had said long back that why the tenancy law does not allow the tenancy market to act freely. If it is allowed to act freely, possibly a large number of people would take the land on rent and agriculture will progress. It can be the other way around also. A lot of politicians will take the land on rent and hold it. That also can happen. Today, the biggest insult to the Land Reforms Act in this country is we had Land Ceiling Act. We have Land Ceiling Act. We have it in most of the states. There is a ceiling limit. But if you look into the agriculture census data where land holding is given, there are many households which have land more than 1,000 acres. Second, there are many persons, there are many. In fact, the land holding of our former agriculture minister Sharad Pawar is beyond ceiling. But then it is not in his name. It is Sharad, this one, a company named this, a company named in the daughter's name. So it is institutional holding. It's under him. Now this is something which every act, for example, black money, holding, act on holding, or the free markets in the agriculture, they have differential impacts.
Good morning, sir. So basically, I don't have a particular question. I just have this thing in my mind. And since you are an expert on the opinion, so sir, then
Incidence is only on the sincere people. Incidence is not on those who should be taxed. So you have something called expenditure tax. He gave a proposal for expenditure tax. I say no. If there are many Quixotian, I'm sure some of you may be knowing the story of Don Quixote. You ask your English madam, she will tell you. Don Quixote was a crazy person. And therefore, it's called Quixotian. Some decision which is not going to yield anything. It's Quixotian. What I told you, 10,000 tax. Expenditure tax. What Nicholas covered, in between this girl disturbs. Here, therefore I lost. Expenditure tax was as you spend, on that alone you pay the tax, and it is just 1%. So no income tax, no other taxes, just 1%. But then every transaction is recorded. So in India, it was not feasible. So it was implemented for 1 year and dropped down. During my MA days, I was to work for my PhD on expenditure tax. Even now, there is one crazy nut in Pune who had also recommended this demonetization by the Bapat. Arthakranti also said that all taxes you close, all taxes, and have only expenditure tax, so that anybody buys a house pays 1% or 2%, not more than that. Anybody buys a chocolate pays 1%. Anybody buys anything pays 1%, and that entirely goes to that. He calculated, but under the assumption that every transaction is recorded. No, we don't have transaction record, and therefore it's impossible. Second thing is why we should pay. The question is that not all the people pay sincerely the tax. You look into you just give how many are returns filed, how many of them paid the tax. Now hardly 20% of those who have filed the returns paid the tax. They file the return, nil return.